Hello and welcome to Tartan Touchdown episodes. This is episode 5, our regular look at what is going on in the world of American football. This episode is our Super Bowl 59 preview show, and all the chat tonight will be focused on the big game in New Orleans. In a repeat of Super Bowl 57 with the Eagles and the Chiefs trying to win the Lombardi. As we should all know, the Chiefs are going for the three-peat, and apologies Pat Riley, but I'm not paying you for using that term. The Eagles are in their second Super Bowl in 3 years, and they're going for a second championship in 8 years, and they will want to avenge their 38-35 loss from 2023. Now, to preview this game, I decided I needed some experts to take me through it. Unfortunately, there was none available, so you're just going to have to put up with the whole Tartan Touchdown team to talk me through the key aspects of the game. First up, this person's team took an Eagles Super Bowl winning head coach and turned into him an average head coach. Poor Doug Peterson. Sarah, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Excited to talk about what maybe be a really boring Super Bowl that nobody wants to watch.
Next, this guy has some recent experience of celebrating 2 Super Bowl wins. When I say recent, I am comparing it to the Cowboys though. Gav, how are you?
Very well, Dan. And I'm going to say thanks, Sarah, for setting us up for this pod, and good night, everyone.
Hey, people might want to listen to us talk about it, and then they don't. Then that's it. That's it.
Our chat will be more exciting than the game. That's what she's trying to say.
See, that's it.
Ahead of our dive into each team, make sure you're following us on Instagram, as we've been putting out some amazing Super Bowl memories this week on the Reels and on our stories. So get involved and let us know what your favourite Super Bowl memory is ahead of the big game. Right, let's start with the actual preview of the show. So we're going to start with who are the slight underdogs. The UK bookmakers have got the Eagles at 21-20. I know those listening in America will go in different fractions and stuff like that, but if you don't gamble, that basically means that you need to put £20 on the Eagles to win £21 back. So it shows you how tight they predict this game to be. And please remember, gamble responsibly. So the Eagles started the season 2-2, and then they went on a 10-game winning run and finished the regular season as NFC East champions with a 14-3 record. Gav, even though they were in our division, I feel that the Eagles went a wee bit under the radar for quite a lot of the regular season. A lot of the focus was on how well the Commanders were doing and how bad the Cowboys were. Did people just forget about the Eagles in the regular season?
I think that's exactly it, because if you actually look at the results, you would expect people to be looked at them as contenders the whole way through. But as you say, everyone was really excited to see Jaden Daniels doing so well in the East in particular. I guess Cowboys want to be more relevant than they really are. But actually, I think if you look across the conference, obviously everyone's expecting the Lions to do well. And in the regular season, they were doing incredibly well. You had that hot start by the Vikings, whereas the Eagles were a slightly slower start to the year. But fly under the radar they did. And I don't think anyone would argue that they're the best team from the NFC this season.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the performances in the regular season, like they started off with a good win against Green Bay in Brazil, so that was a good one for them. Every Green Bay are a good team. Then lost to Atlanta, which people weren't sure what to make of Atlanta this year, so we couldn't really at that point of the season say was that a good result or bad result, because it was a 1-point loss against a kind of new Atlanta team. They beat New Orleans and they lost to Tampa Bay again. It's a team that's decent. So, like you said, Gav, it was a slow start. But then they went on that 10-game unbeaten run. During that, let's say they beat the Bengals, they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Commanders, they beat the Rams, they beat the Ravens, and they beat the Steelers. That run there, even after that run, they kind of started to look as if they're leading. But like you said, the focus in the NFC was all about what the Lions and necessarily what the Vikings were doing, because obviously the Vikings was a bit unpredicted this year when JJ McCarthy went down. What the Commanders were doing, so as if the Eagles were like kind of fourth of importance to what was going on in the NFC. Sarah, what was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just think everybody was like, oh, okay, well, we'll see what they do. I don't think everybody kind of was just, like, they were just like turning along, like they were just turning up, showing up, doing their thing, going away again. Like, I think maybe part of the reason that they flew under the radar was because no one expected them to do anything different apart from win. So it wasn't a shock. It wasn't like Gav was saying about how the Commanders put up such a front and everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is supposed to be a rebuild year for them. We all thought the Eagles would still be the Eagles. So I guess maybe that's what maybe is the key piece of the puzzle and how they've turned up.
Yeah, everybody kind of got a bit complacent with them. They're going to win, but nobody kind of really paid attention to what was going on with them. Like I said, they finished with 14-3 record in the regular season to win the NFC East. into the playoffs. First round, they beat the Packers 22-10. So after beating them the first game of the season, they beat them in the playoffs this year. Again, getting into the playoffs, I think most people, apart from myself, predicted the Eagles to win that one. I did have my PTSD from last year when the Packers smashed the Cowboys, but the Packers did look like a decent team, so that was a good win for them to beat the Packers. They then go into the divisional round where they beat the Rams 28-22. Again, beating another good team, so it's not as if they're beating teams that aren't performing. They are beating teams, and suddenly the Eagles are in the NFC Championship game. But again, the story was all about the Commanders, because the Commanders were in the NFC Championship game. They had beat the Lions. So again, as if the Eagles were just under the radar, and then suddenly they came out and smashed the Commanders 55-23, and then suddenly, wait a minute, the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, but actually a very good team here.
Time's up. Gosh, no one did anything about it. Like,
yeah, the whole NFC are like, where did the Eagles come from?
Where did you come from? Like, who let Saquon Barkley run through the door?
So thinking about that, on you go, Gav.
I was going to say, the thing about the Eagles is they're not one of the most storied franchises in the NFL, but they're a team that's just always there. Obviously, they're beaten Super Bowl contenders from 2 years ago. They won the Super Bowl back in 2018, which is certainly more recent than any of our teams have been in that game. So, they're a team that's always been in the conversation, whereas, you said, you've got teams like the Lions, like the Commanders, who I think everyone was willing them to have a bit of success after such lengthy droughts. I mean, maybe, depends on your divisional allegiances, but I think that the general consensus is they wanted them to do well. So I think that's perhaps one of the things that's perhaps not switched people on to the Eagles, in the sense that they've always been solid, but maybe, they're not thought of as being exceptional, and maybe not a team that, particularly in the States, because I've got to say, like, maybe being an ocean away, I don't feel the same kind of hate for the Eagles that a lot of other people do from the NFC East. But I think, there's a lot of Americans, they don't want to see the Eagles in the Super Bowl any more than they do the Chiefs.
Yeah, who would have known it, eh?
Who would have thought?
So looking at that run the Eagles done through the playoffs, like, how was that expected? Was it, did we kind of just think, like you said, they were just going to win, or what was your, to sum up that playoff performance for the Eagles?
I think their playoff run shows what they have to do in the Super Bowl, which is that defense needs to show up time and time again. You don't rock up to the first round of the playoffs and manage to beat a team 22-10. Like, that's unfathomable. And then you don't get to the NFC Championship game and absolutely throttle a team, and the scoreline reads what it is. So I think it is all on that defense. They're such a strong, resilient force with that, which again, I think no one expected. Then all of a sudden they were the number one defense in the league, and we're all sitting there going, oh shit, when did that happen? And I think that's what they need to really continue to build upon for Sunday's game. If they're going to do it, I don't think they're going to win it by scoring. I think they'll win by stopping the Chiefs from scoring.
Yeah. Like you say, that defence has been ridiculous this season. I mean, 51 sacks, they've got 17 interceptions and forced fumbles, and 29 forced fumbles. So we've seen it with the Commanders, the turnovers. To win this game, they're going to have to force.
They're going to have to take the ball off them any chance they get.
They're going to have to keep Mahomes off the field, or take the ball off him when he is on the field. So that's going to be key to them into this game. But we'll circle back to the game plan shortly. But so you guys, I set you guys a challenge before we came on tonight with the preview. So there's so many ways that you could preview this game, right? And we could be here for hours if we covered everything. So I tasked you guys to name a player on each team that you think is going to be key to them winning, but you weren't allowed to choose Saquon Barkley or Patrick Mahomes because they were too obvious. And every podcast is going to be talking about the two of them. So I set you a challenge. So before we get into your players, there was some breaking news come out just before we started recording from the Eagles that Jalen Carter's always got some sort of illness, but that illness seems to be spreading throughout the camp, and that came from Vic Fangio himself. So he's come out and said Jalen Carter's not well. The illness is spreading. With all the media duties, Gavin, all the promo stuff that the players are having to do this week, something like this is always going to be a risk because they don't know who they're talking to. there's always there's thousands of people that are interacting with in Super Bowl week. It doesn't happen any other week of the year. Is it just an occupational risk, or is it something the league should maybe look at? Is this actually, because Mahomes has said that before the last couple of Super Bowls, some of the Chiefs players have been sick. I think the Eagles players were sick before the last Super Bowl they were in as well. There's obviously something there somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. I'd seen the same story, and I think it was Super Bowl 52. So actually, Doug Pederson himself, he was sick when the Eagles beat the Patriots. So it's something that has happened before, and certainly teams can overcome that. I guess obviously the big thing that's happened in the last 5 years is COVID. So I think certainly we're much more as a society, we're much more alive to what can happen when you put people in compressed spaces, especially when people are coming from all over the world for an event like the Super Bowl, all over America, not just the fans, but the media, obviously the teams as well. So there's various different elements that are coming into play there, and I guess the other thing you've got to think about is it's quite a stressful time. There's a lot going on. So people, certainly from the players' perspective, they get to the end of the season, they're tired. And you are, despite all the nutrition, all the best advice in the world, you are going to be exposed to these kind of things. Now, obviously, I think, is this going to get in the way of the Eagles' ability to win? Not necessarily, but when we think about football, in terms of such fine margins, anything that you can do to boost your performance, boost your health, basically going into the game, is going to be a potential differentiator. So I'll be honest, I can't see them really changing the protocol significantly, just because of what it means to the league, what it means to the players, what it means to the media. Is this perhaps going to inhibit the Eagles? I think it's a possibility, but I don't think any of us are going to change our predictions on the basis of what's come out today.
Perfect. Right, so first up we're going to come for the Eagles and our three key players for the Eagles for this game that are not Saquon Barkley. So Sarah, I'm going to come to you first. Who is your key player for the Eagles going into the game?
It's going to be Devontae Smith. Is going to be my key player, especially for the Eagles' offense. I could sit and pick all the defensive players, but that we'd be here all night. So like his constant performance, his ability to play under pressure, and I think they have significantly contributed to the team's success this year. So if you look at his season performance, so he had 68 receptions for 833 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns in the regular season. So he's a reliable target. They know he can get it. He's such a precise route runner that he can just create separation. And if anybody would like to know, in the previous Super Bowl mashup he recorded 7 receptions for 100 yards. So he's done it before. He can do it again at the next level, I think, for them this weekend.
So when you told me that before we started recording, I said, yeah, that's an interesting pick, because most people are going to think AJ Brown is going to be the key guy. When I look at the stats, over the regular season and the playoffs, Devonta Smith had more catches than AJ Brown. The difference is AJ Brown's average yard per catches is much higher, so AJ Brown just shy of 1,200 yards, and Devonta Smith's on 954, but they both get 8 touchdowns as well. So they are actually kind of even with each other, so it does give Jalen Hurts that double threat on the outside, doesn't it?
Yep, and it also allows that shows you almost what the game plan is. The game plan is that they use Smith when they need to gain the smaller passes and the smaller yards, and then they know we can use AJ for the big throws, for what we need him to do when it's 3rd and 10 and we need to get down the field. Yeah. So I think by using both of them together is their key component for their wide receiver core.
Yeah, looking at both of them, so Smith actually averaged 12 yards a catch and AJ Brown just under 16 yards a catch. Gav, they have 2 wide receivers that pretty much every catch they make is going for a first down. Is going to be key against the Chiefs, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously got to keep the ball at Patrick Mahomes' hands as much as you have to score yourself. And I think, obviously, any good defensive coordinator in the NFL is going to game plan to take to try and take your biggest strengths away. So I think obviously everybody's thinking everyone's thinking Saquon Barkley, but then when you go to the air, obviously who are you going to put your CB1 up against? And I think what's really interesting, speaking to that balance that we've seen this season, actually, if you look at the Super Bowl last time around, Devonta Smith was targeted 9 times, AJ Brown targeted 8 times. AJ Brown finished slightly under. Devonta Smith, he had 6 for 96 and a touchdown. Again, slightly higher average reception. So maybe, just in terms of the types of routes they're running, the types of plays that are being called, obviously, they're brought in for slightly different situations. But I think, as we know from that previous game, Kadarius Toney made a big play for the Chiefs in that previous Super Bowl. We are going to talk about the keepers, we're going to talk about the stars, but actually it's about how you spread the load, because you can't rely on one bell cow to get it done.
Well, Gavin, what we'll do is I'll just continue and let you do your player, because we've just realised it's just related into that anyway. So on the flip side, Dennis picked Devonta Smith as our key player for the Eagles. Who's yours?
Yeah, so I was actually leaning towards AJ Brown on this, and I think big part of that is we've been well advised to stay away from Saquon. So I think that's rationale. There is, we know that he is the biggest threat for the Eagles coming into this game, and he has got the job done in the playoffs so far. It just naturally tells you what are the Chiefs going to do. They're going to try and stop the run. Now, of course, they want to do that with as few bodies as possible committed to. But I think we can see that the way the game plan is going to evolve is that the Eagles are going to have to take to the air to go after it. I guess AJ Brown, why am I thinking that? Obviously, he's the bigger guy. He's the physical threat, scoring threat. But I think even talking about the role in the run game, we've seen that he really does play a big role in terms of getting those downfield blocks and springing Saquon for these home run plays that we've seen, 50, 60, 70-yard touchdowns throughout the playoffs, throughout the regular season. So I think, he is going to be a big contributor in both aspects of the Eagles' offensive plan.
Yeah, that's something that has been picked up on, especially in the playoffs, that AJ Brown is not scared to put a block in down the field, and it has made a massive difference to the runs that Bartley's made. So, all right, so my picks, obviously we spoke earlier on about how this Eagles defence has been so good. So, player I've been massively impressed by this year, and I think is going to be key to them on the defensive side of the ball, is Zach Bond. He's just, every time you watch an Eagles game, he's involved somewhere. No matter what's happening, he's always involved. So he's became an absolute leader on that defence from this year. He signed on a 1 year, $3.5 million deal for the Saints last year. Even Vic Fangio was asked, could you have envisioned the impact it was going to have? And he said, no. We knew it was going to be good for us, but we could never have envisioned that was what it was going to be. I mean, he left New Orleans with 12 starts and 88 tackles over 4 years. So in 1 year with the Eagles, he's now flourished under Vic Fangio. He's in a finals for Defensive Player of the Year, which NFL Honours will be decided tonight. His stats for the season: 175 tackles, 108 of them are solo tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 6 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and 2 interceptions. That's ridiculous for a linebacker in this league to get those stats. Why I think Zach Bond, apart from obviously all that production that he's come out with for the team, is one player we'll talk about a bit later on, is that on the Chiefs side of the ball, Travis Kelce always seems to find himself wide open in the middle of the field. No matter what the scheme against him, you always think, why is Travis Kelce wide open in the middle of the field? That's exactly where Zach Bond's going to be. Him and Nakobe Dean are playing at linebacker. They should stop that happening. I mean, we obviously know Travis Kelce's got magical powers to get open. We don't know how he does it, but he does. But having Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond in that linebacker position for the Eagles, hopefully for them, should stop that. And Zach Bond's going to be key component of keeping, like you mentioned, Patrick Mahomes needs to either they need to take the ball off him, or they need to keep him off the field. And Zach Bond as a leader and his defensive production is going to be key to that. So that's my key pick of the game. I'm going to slightly cheat here. I'm not picking a player, but there's one player we mentioned him, but we've not spoken about him, who has been an absolute revelation for the Eagles this year, is Jalen Carter. He has been unreal this year. I mean, I think coming out of the draft and stuff like that, and obviously there's all the jokes about the Georgia defensive line and all that sort of stuff. But Jalen Carter has just took a massive step up this season, hasn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, totally. I again, everyone was. Again, it falls in that part about how no one took a second glance at them, and it just sort of happened. So yeah, I think he's been a key player for them, and hopefully he's feeling better for ahead of Sunday. Just passes it off to somebody else, it'll be fine.
Yeah, have you been impressed with Jalen Carter this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key reasons why I think it's right that we actually spotlight the Eagles' defense is because throughout the regular season, this is a 14-3 side. They actually averaged time of possession across the entire season of 27 minutes on the offense. So actually, this is a defense that is used to having to be on the field for the majority of the game. Despite being a winning team, the defense has actually been the foundation of that success. Funnily enough, the Chiefs actually have spent more time on defense and offense this year as well. So that's something that the two teams have in common. But I think, yeah, obviously we've seen that throughout the playoff run. That yes, I think we all remember the big plays by Saquon, but the number of times that Philly defense has had to come and make a key stop or force a turnover. They've had 4, I believe, against the Commanders in the championship game. I think you cannot understate the role that they've played in getting them to this point. And clearly going up against Patrick Mahomes, that's not going to change on Sunday evening.
Yeah. The Eagles defence have had 52 sacks this season, but 26 of them have came from linebacking positions. So between Zach Bond, Nicole Bedean, and a couple of linebackers, so they obviously they bring the pressure from the second level of the defence as well. It's not just the guys on the line like Jalen Carter, it's your linebackers are coming through. But they've had 11 sacks in the playoffs as well. So, I mean, that's massive. You're going to win playoff games, you're going to have to get to the quarterback. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Chiefs, and we'll come to the Chiefs and how they're going to scheme against that. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the Chiefs' O-line schemes up against that, and the running backs given the protection of the deep blitzes as well. So, right, guys, I know I said, and it was a challenge to you to not talk about Saquon Barkley, but Gav, we can't not talk about him. So all we're saying is we couldn't pick him as a key player because that's the obvious pick, right? But Saquon Barkley is the key to the Eagles winning this game. It really is. If we all know if Barkley performs the way he can, then the Eagles have got the best chance of winning this game. Gav, sum up the impact that Barkley has had on the Eagles this season.
And I think you have to say it's transformational. Just being able to have that kind of dominance on that side of the ball. It's not just dominance because he can get into phases, or the Eagles offense can get into phases where he will get into just a cloud of dust. And then, as we saw against the Rams, you get late into the fourth quarter and suddenly he's away for 70 yards again. He is just an incredible athlete who can play 60 minutes plus if need be. If you look at, if you think about it, the game has become a pass first league, and then you look at the Eagles stats in the season. They've had I think just under 3,200 passing yards all year. The leading receiver, AJ Brown, 1,079 yards, 67 receptions. These are not spectacular numbers at all. So having someone like Saquon in the backfield who is a dual threat. I mean, he's tallied over 2,000 yards on the ground. He can catch the ball as well. So he is something you have to account for downfield if need be. He is just a true difference maker. And I think my regret, as I think we've probably talked about before as a Giants fan, isn't so much that we didn't keep him, but that we weren't able to utilise him in the previous 6 years to this level.
Yeah. Looking at the Eagles' rushing stats for this season, so rushing play percentage number 1 in the league, almost 56% of them are rushing plays. Rushes per game, 36, number 1 in the league. Rushing touchdowns per game, they're averaging 2 a game, 1 in the league. Rushing yards per game, nearly 187, second in the league. And then rushing yards per rush, just over 5, which puts them 4th in the league. It's just ridiculous, and that doing no disservice to Kenneth Gainwell and stuff like that, but that's all Saquon Barkley. The touchdowns are maybe Jalen Hurts stealing them on the push on the goal line, but that offensive, that rushing scheme is all about Saquon Barkley, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, totally. And I just want to point out, obviously, as much as it is about Saquon Barkley and it is obviously about the running game, we have to talk about how good that offensive line is to open that door for him to go. Because if they can't find the gap that he's going to, if they can't hold them off to open the gap up, then he's got nowhere to go. And I think that is a key component that, again, nobody really speaks about the Eagles' offensive line. Because, again, like, Jalen Hurts has been relatively okay this season. He's not really had too much of a pressure point. He's not really had too many sacks on him or whatever. And I think they've just blended so well together that Saquon does have the ability to find the gap and just go for it.
Yeah.
And he's just a machine. I love watching him play because I'm just like, on you go. Yeah. Just keep going, son. It's fine.
Obviously, we talk about Derrick Henry, but if you look at defences, there's not many players in the league where defences will be scared of a player. But Saquon Barkley, defences must be terrified to come up against them. A defensive coordinator like Spags' game plan, I'm assuming this week, a lot of it will be how do we stop Saquon Barkley? So if you've got a player in your team that basically takes the focus of a defensive game plan on him, it opens up, we mentioned AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. You're going to have that balance of the run and pass game. I mean, good luck to the Chiefs trying to stop Barkley, but if they do stop him, then the Eagles have got that passing game there as well, and they've also got Hurts can get in the ball and get his feet going as well. So there's a lot of aspects of that Eagles offense that they're going to have to take into consideration. If you stop one part of it, you can stop the wide receivers, then you're not stopping Barkley. It's game over. Stop Barkley, you need to stop the wide receivers. They have a very balanced offense. That's a good thing, and it's most of the focus, like we said, has been on Barkley this year because it's just been ridiculous. But as you guys have spoken about, the two wide receivers, I mean, they're as good as anybody in the league, the stats and stuff like that. So from an Eagles offensive point of view, it is going to be very interesting. So yeah, we couldn't not stop talking about Barkley. I just wasn't letting you make him the key players of the game. So before we move over and we flip over, we talk about the Chiefs. We're going to talk about one of our favourite parts of our Super Bowl. It doesn't matter who's playing in the first half, doesn't matter who's playing in the second half. Who's playing at halftime is what really matters to a lot of people. So we're going to take a wee brief chat and we'll talk about halftime shows and our favourites and stuff like that. So I'm not a massive fan. I've not listened to any of his music, Sarah, but I know you can talk us through. This year's Super Bowl halftime show is going to be Kendrick Lamar. Obviously, he performed a few years ago, not as a solo artist, as part of a collective. But what can we expect from the halftime show from Kendrick Lamar this year?
I think, so Kendrick Lamar to me is such a high energy. He's like such a focus on visuals. And I think, I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but I think the cultural impact of the shows might be quite interesting depending on what route he goes down. We all know he's got a big mouth. He'll happily run it. He'll happily say whatever he wants. I think it's going to be a really interesting mix of his. I think he's going to do his biggest hit. So I think you're going to get Humble. You're going to get DNA. You're going to get Not Like Us. Obviously, SZA is obviously his guest, so I think they'll do the one from Black Panther, which was Escape Me for a Second, which is All the Stars. I think she might do Kill Bill because again, that's like her biggest hit. And I just think it's going to be pretty good. I think people aren't going to expect it's going to be as good as it's going to be. And I think he's like the dancers are probably going to be really, really good. His choreography is going to be quite sick. And he's also a bit of a mover. I think he'll happily get involved in stuff. I'm not saying he's going to be like Usher last year, but he'll happily kind of be involved, and he loves a deep message. So I think this symbolic imagery might be quite interesting. But I don't predict any more guests. I think it's only going to be SZA. As much as I'd love a reunion from a previous Super Bowl, I would love to see somebody else pop up again, but I think it'll just be SZA.
Yeah, unfortunately. You see, he does like the limelight. He does like to run his mouth. So is he going to want to share that with anybody else? Probably not.
Probably not. And I think we might get another. I think he might do something to Drake again, but that's okay.
He's already said he's going to sing Not Like Us. So he's already come out and said that. So yeah, let's see how that goes down.
Oh, I also have another prediction. Sorry, that I forgot to mention. I think he's going to bring a marching band in and do some kind of New Orleans kind of vibe. Cool. I think that would be really cool. Maybe because also he loves a sample, so I could see him sampling like one of Louis Armstrong's pieces. because Louis Armstrong's from
Yeah.
New Orleans. So I could see that as his like imagery, kind of like callback almost. And also it's Black History Month, so got to throw it in.
There's so many different aspects of it that
people don't think about.
Yeah,
People
I'm
don't
not,
think.
I'm not saying I'm not a fan. I don't like him. I just never listened to his music, so I don't know. So, but it's a halftime show at Super Bowl. Who's not going to watch it? Do you know what I mean?
Watch it.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes up with. And I mean, I watched obviously the Super Bowl he was at before, but I probably switched off for those 5 minutes because I'm more interested in everybody else.
Everybody else coming out.
Even he was singing. Gav, you get much thoughts on Kendrick Lamar at all?
I mean, I know of him, but I think
is it because I'm the millennial? Is that why you're all like let our talk about it?
obviously a kid in the house that certainly knows more about Kendrick than I do. But I think what I would say is that it's always interesting when Super Bowl run comes around that there's sometimes going to be an act that you know, you love, you think it's amazing, and sometimes it's, you know, you're really not feeling it. And, you know, seeing social media, lots of fans here that will say, oh, that was terrible, or I didn't care for it. The thing is, it's not for you. It's not there for you. If you're a fan of the sport, the NFL's already get your money. You know, it's the people who you see in work, or your neighbours, or your friends who never watch all year round, and they will stay up and watch at least the first half of the game, and they'll stay up at least until the end of the halftime show just to see that and watch it live. It's about bringing these new viewers, and they won't convert everyone, but sometimes you never know, you'll get someone who will just catch fire for them, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, there's been some superb halftime shows over the years, but I think, yeah, you've just got to go with it.
Well,
can I just say one more thing about Kendrick Lamar's show, just as your resident?
Can I ask you a question before you say it?
Are you gonna ask me if you think she's going
to throw someone from the crowd to sing with him?
Nah, I don't think so. I think could see him doing his rap from Bad Blood, but I don't see her doing it. I think she will do the Super Bowl when she owns all her own music again. So you're going to have to maybe wait until next year for that to happen. But I don't think she'll do it. I don't think no, I don't think so.
I think she'll do it once Travis, if Travis retires, I don't think she wants to agree to do it in case he's in the game, because then in a way he misses it all.
I think it's taking his limelight, because we could talk about them all day, but I think they're very good at not showing up in each other's spotlight, if that makes sense. Like, she goes to the games and she supports them, and that's fine. He was at the show. He obviously appeared in one of our Eras Tour shows, but it was only one. It was a one and done. Yeah. So I think they're very good at letting the other person shine when they have to shine.
Yeah.
So
the circus that would create around them as a couple if he's trying to focus on the game as well. So I think potentially there's no way she's not been asked. There's no way she was not asked to do the Super Bowl this year. After last year, there's no way the NFL didn't ask her, because it would have been negligent if they hadn't asked her. So the way is that's the reason that she knows that the Chiefs had a good chance of getting there. The amount of circus it would then create around Travis just wasn't worth it. But I think if he this year, next year,
I think it would be very cute if Kendrick did his little rap, because that would be like a little nod that he knows that she's there type situation. I would clap and cheer for that. I'd be happy with it.
Excellent. So, Gav, you mentioned obviously there's been so many performances across Super Bowls. We've had Michael Jackson, we've had U2. We were talking before we came on there. We had Boyz II Men. We've had everybody. Diana Ross. But Gav, of all the Super Bowl halftime shows, what's been your favourite one?
Yeah, I think there's so many that I could really go with. I mean, I think for the Giants, I mean, it's funny being there twice. I've got a very positive association with the Madonna halftime show that she did. CeeLo Green appearing at that. I'll be honest, I don't remember quite as much about the Tom Petty show when we beat the Perfect Patriots back in 2008. But the one that I'm actually going to go with, and I think a lot of this is to do with the context, if some of you might have seen it in socials, is the Prince halftime show from 2007, which was the Colts against the Bears. So I guess that's memorable for a couple of reasons in terms of the game and in terms of my own personal circumstances at the time. So the game was played in monsoon-like conditions in Miami. So There's an absolute downpour throughout the game. It did calm down a bit by the time halftime rolled around, but if you've seen the clips of it, you've got the rains on the camera lenses. It's actually a little bit blurry. I was actually in Berlin on holiday when this was on, so I was actually at the Berlin Thunder. If anyone remembers them from NFL Europe, they had a Super Bowl party in an old sort of a repurposed cinema. So you get this massive hall, like cinema-sized hall, which was absolutely packed, full of people. Not just Germans, but there's folks from America there as well. I've met that were over in business, and giant cinema-sized screen, and people were just swaying like they had lighters in the air. Like everyone was just really feeling it when Purple Rain came on at the end of that. That was just that really worked for me. Just seeing it in that setting was amazing.
Yeah. That was when I've watched it back on YouTube, and the clip that we put up on social the other day with the whatever it was in front of him, that imagery of him, the silhouette and all that was just unreal. And it's one of the things when I watched it back again, I've got the silhouette, the shape of his guitar, you can see it sticking out. It's such an iconic image for him anyway. It's like a very Prince-like image, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was excellent to see that as well. So I'm going to bring us a wee bit much further forward for my favourite one, and I'm going to go for Super Bowl 56. It was in LA, it was in Inglewood. There was only one way that this Super Bowl halftime show could go. I was a big fan. I'm a big fan of growing up listening to some rappers, and Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and 50 Cent are all rappers that I listened to growing up, and the music that I really enjoyed listening to. So that halftime show was it was out of this world. Remember when they done the release video for who was going to be on it? Even the release video for the halftime show was amazing when you had them going around and basically recruiting them all. There was a lot of money spent on that, obviously. So obviously they had Mary J. Blige there as a massive star herself, and as we mentioned before, Kendrick Lamar performed at that halftime show as well. So surely that's got to be the biggest halftime show that's ever actually happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is. It's having all those artists in the one stage at the one time. It's definitely the biggest, definitely the best for me anyway. I mean, how many other halftime shows have won 3 Emmys? Because that did. But something you mentioned, Gav, about is not necessarily about people watching the game that don't normally watch it in the halftime show. The halftime show of this Super Bowl averaged 103.4 million viewers. The game itself only averaged 101 million viewers. So there's a higher average of people watch the halftime show than did the Super Bowl. And that's what you mentioned. It's about getting these people that don't normally tune in to watch it because the halftime show is there. I'm reading the numbers for this halftime show as well. So a halftime show usually has about a $13 million budget for production. So if those that don't know, the artists for the halftime show don't get paid at all. They do it for free because it's basically them promoting themselves. It's also a privilege to play the halftime show. It's seen as a privilege in the music industry, so they don't get paid for it. But the NFL give them a production budget. So for this one, it was $13 million. Dr. Dre then put another $7 million of his own, put money in to make it $20 million for a halftime show. It was the most expensive ever, but it's just ridiculous. It was just, I could go back and watch it every day if I wanted. It was just some amazing hits. They all played the songs, and it's all the beats that drop and stuff like that. Everybody recognises. I could talk about it all night, but I'm not going to. So, Sarah, I'd try follow on that one. What's your favourite?
I mean, I can follow up with the 4th most watched halftime show in the history with 117.5 million viewers, which is Super Bowl 51, and the icon that is Lady Gaga. Oh, what a performance. Like, as a Lady Gaga fan for pretty much the minute Just Dance hit my radio waves at 13, I was far too young to be listening to Just Dance, but that's fine. She, at that point, I think really propelled herself forward to the next level of stardom, which is exactly what she wanted to do. It was so high energy. Fun facts, solo without any guests, which was the first solo headline show since 2010, and it's also the first female headline show since 1996. So your gal put the work in. She absolutely killed it. It was just hit after hit after hit. It never stopped. I was watching it back and I was trying to find a clip to even like synergize the performance, and I picked a clip at the start and then went, oh wait a minute, I'm missing this clip. Oh wait a minute, I'm missing this clip. And it was just so good. I also like the big thing as well, she started off on top, well, pre-filmed at the top of the stadium, jumped down, and then jumped off at the end, and it was Meme City.
Yeah.
We all turned that into memes, and I was loving my life in 2017. And then the Falcons blew the 28-point lead, and that was the game in overtime.
Yeah. I remember watching it, and like, I'm not going to say I don't mind Lady Gaga, so I do enjoy some of her songs. I remember like when Poker Face came out and stuff like that. It was different at the time when the music came out. It wasn't really, I still wouldn't describe it as poppy. It was just a different. It caught on, and that before you say it was just high energy, never stopped up the trapeze like on the wires and all that. It was just non-stop, and like every song she sung, like sometimes you watch halftime shows and there's artists you're like, I maybe don't know this song, but I'll listen. Every one of her songs was an absolute hit. And it blew the place apart, like you said. It was an unbelievably energetic performance.
I think as well she brought, because I think a lot, and maybe this is a bit him or whatever, but I think women feel like who perform the halftime show feel like they have to do more than the men do. So she was the high production, the high quality and stuff. And I think that even the men that have performed after her have tried to bring up that's her standard. So when you look at The Weeknd's performance, when you look at Justin Timberlake's performance, when you look at Usher's performance, they have now produced the same level that the women who have gone before them have done it.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, because you had, artists turn up and they would just pretend to play their guitar, not looking at you, Maroon 5, but I'll look at you, Maroon 5. And it's just they didn't have the same energy, but she came and did it, and they went, oh God, we all have to match this now. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping Kendrick can do this year.
Yeah, I mean, very much before, like you said, it was very much of a concert, just stand on a stage and sing. Whereas now it's a whole massive production, and like you say, she was probably one of the first ones to really go out and blow the roof off the place with a production. Are you a fan of the Gaga one, Gav?
Yeah, I think the Gaga one was incredible. I think, like you say, the big theme that you get with that show, but I think with all great halftime shows, it's just energy. It's people that keep going and going. And, it's. I mean, usually you get into 12 to 15 minutes max to go through a medley. So it is rapid fire. You've got the cameos coming in. You've got the little jokes and set pieces. But all the great ones. I mean, I guess name dropping some of the ones that we've not talked about already, like Bruno Mars. I remember lit up a really one-sided Super Bowl in New York. The Katy Perry one.
With the left shark. The left shark who didn't know what was going on.
Giant tiger. She comes in this giant.
Just this giant. We haven't even mentioned Beyonce. We haven't then mentioned the Coldplay one with Beyonce and Bruno Mars came back, and Beyonce fell and got up again, and everyone thought it was part of the choreography, and we clap.
But we do more and more as well, because I think you'd actually mentioned Gaga was the fourth most watched of all time. The most watched two have been the last 2 years, Rihanna and then Usher. Last year's the most watched with 123 million viewers. So it's only growing.
Yeah. One we won't necessarily talk about too much for obvious reasons, but looking back, 2004, obviously, infamous Super Bowl halftime show, but I just realised I forgot the full lineup for that Super Bowl. Janet Jackson, He Who Shall Not Be Named at the moment, Nelly, Kid Rock, Justin Timberlake and Jessica Simpson.
Yep. I mean,
that was absolutely loaded.
Why Jessica Simpson was in it? I don't really know. But
who was she dating at the time?
But I think she was still married to Nick Lacey, I'm pretty sure.
But see, if you think back before that, just looking through it, was a lot of rock. It was all a lot of rock artists for a while. Do you know what I mean? They kind of, like, you had, there's another one, Phil Collins, Christina Aguilera, Enrique Iglesias, and Tony Braxton is a random name for you. Then you had Aerosmith and NSYNC, U2.
NSYNC.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of Paul McCartney. So in a row, Paul McCartney, Rolling Stones, Prince, Tom Petty, and Bruce Springsteen, and then The Who.
Yep.
So I mean, so there was that section where we're just going to go with the one genre. Whereas now it seems to have flipped across. So obviously we've had Rihanna, we've had The Weeknd, we've had the rappers and stuff like that. It seems like I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to it with Usher. So we're now in a phase where we're just having kind of rap artists being the halftime show. Is that kind of where we're at, or R&B? Is that kind of the theme we're at the moment?
I would guess we've had our pop of the noughties and the tens, so now we're going to R&B, hip hop, rap. I mean, fine. I guess it's also like I guess it tries to move with the culture and what's happening in music, because obviously pop saw a big massive resurgence in the 2000s, and then electropop is Gaga's subgenre of music, which she's gone back to because her new song is incredible. But now it seems that hip hop and rap music has become cool again, and that's what I guess as well, because I think the younger artists that are coming up now can make it in their house, and that's what we're seeing now, and that's the driving force for it. So maybe it will be rap. Maybe it won't be Taylor Swift then. Maybe it won't be Taylor Swift next year.
There's a few songs on her album that can maybe fall into that category. Anyway, right, let's move back to the game. Halftime show's over. Lights are back out. The lights are out. Production's over. Stage is away. Fans are off the pitch. Second half's about to kick off. So let's move into the second half of our preview. And so, obviously, when we switch over, we talk about the Chiefs. So, the Chiefs in the regular season to me, they just done just enough to win a lot of their games, with 9 of their 15 regular season wins coming by a score or less. The only real blot on their regular season record was a loss to the Bills. And the other loss that they got was week 18 against the Broncos, where nobody was playing for the Chiefs anyway. So they finished the AFC as the number 1 seed, a 15-2 record. What did you make of their regular season, Sarah?
How did we get here? How did we do it? How did we do it? I mean, obviously they began their season, so they had 9-0 run, which is the best for a start they've ever had in their franchise. Obviously their win over. I remember talking about their game against the Ravens in week 1 on my TikTok and said that was a playoff game. Yeah. That was a playoff game. Like, that was not a week 1 opener. That was an AFC Championship game. And I guess that just set them up for the rest of time. They've just, like, I guess it's just the resilience and the adaptability they're able to do, and they've maintained that status as a dominant force. And obviously they've set high expectations, and we tried to put people against them to be like, no, they can do it. And they just kept going, unfortunately. And I don't think it's really, I don't want to get into like whatever everybody thinks about them and stuff, but like, I just think it was how the cards were dealt, and here we are again.
Yeah, I mean, coming out this season, I think everybody's thoughts that that season was, it's fine, they can't do it again. I think that's the attitude that everybody thought. They've won it 2 in a row, they've had their chance, they'll do it again. But you said the run at the start of the season, so they went on that run of winning 9 games. They beat the Ravens, they beat the Bengals, they beat the 49ers, they beat the Bucks. The Bucks are going to turn up, but against a big win. The other teams they probably should have beaten. Chargers, probably a good win against the Chargers as well, until they then lost to Buffalo. But did we all just forget about the Chiefs like we did with the Eagles and underestimate them, Gav? Did we just think this isn't going to happen and nobody ever paid attention to them?
I think we wanted to forget about the Chiefs. I think probably the honest answer. I think it's difficult to forget about the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions, particularly when, like you say, they didn't even lose a game until November this year when they faced the Bills. So yeah, I think everyone knew that they were always there. I think there's definitely an element of really not wanting to think about it too much. I guess the other thing was, I mean, say you talked about that being a playoff game or playoff level game, week 1 against the Ravens. I think the other factor is that the Chiefs didn't have that many big name teams to play on their schedule this year. I mean, yes, they did have that first place schedule, but the teams that they came up against as a result of that, like the Bengals, who they played at Arrowhead in week 2, like the Texans that they played at Christmas time, they didn't suddenly become bad teams overnight, but they certainly weren't on a level of where they were last season. So I think that the opposition didn't really kind of rise to that standard. And obviously, I think you're looking at teams, a lot of these teams that they put away by a couple of points, like the Raiders, the Panthers, who, again, maybe a team on the up, but not someone that you expect to take the Chiefs down to the wire in the way that they did. So I think that's the thing that is probably still hanging around now, even coming into the Super Bowl, is that we know that the Chiefs are capable of winning Lombardies, but over the course of this season, there's a very small sample of like top tier games where you're thinking that's why they're champions. And I think obviously, they did deserve to beat the Bills over the piece. And I think certainly the point about the refereeing decisions, I think they have benefited from decisions because we focus on them. But I think the thing that you learn from watching or playing any sports is that every team is going to be a victim of and benefit from refereeing errors at some point in the game, and your job as a player, as a coach, is to make sure that it doesn't come down to that.
Okay, so looking at the off season for last year, so obviously the Chiefs back-to-back Super Bowl champions. So looking at the players that they lost last season, they lost Nick Allegretti, their guard, to the Commanders, and the next biggest loss they probably had, they lost Willie Gay, linebacker, and then it was Marcus Valdez-Scantling. They didn't really lose much of their team last year. So you really got the same Chiefs team from last year. And this season, they managed to keep a hold of Chris Jones. They added Hollywood Brown. Who else did they add? Irv Smith. They added him at the tight end. And Carson Wentz, who's played in that last game of the season where they get absolutely humped. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, they picked up, obviously, they drafted them well. Xavier Worthy was kind of the key, obviously, pick out from the draft for them. But apart from maybe two players, it's the same Chiefs team that won the Super Bowl last year. So why did we think they weren't going to do it again, Jimmy? Because it's the same team, same coach, same team, everything's the same. But like you say, Gav, maybe we all just didn't want to think that it was possible again, and our hopes just became what we actually expected to happen. And then suddenly here we are, number one seed, 15-2, and they get into the playoffs. So they obviously get the number one seed, they get the bye, they get through to then beat the Texans 23-14. And then, as we've seen 2 weeks ago, the AFC Championship game that beat the Bills 32-29, and what was Bills had a chance to win the game, as we spoke about the other week. But have they been impressive in the playoffs, Gav? Have they just done enough again like they've done in the regular season?
I mean, they've definitely done enough by virtue of the fact that they're here. But I think they've not smashed either of the teams that they played in the terms of the Texans and the Bills. But I think what I would say, I think trying to give credit to the Chiefs, is that they are a complete team in terms of they play all 3 phases of the game successfully and highly effectively. And I think a big part of that is that actually we've seen over the years that obviously the Chiefs have had to let go of players as they've had to pay money to the top positions, in particular Patrick Mahomes. So obviously guys like Tyreek Hill has obviously had to be moved on a few years ago now, but Mahomes has found a way to work with whatever receivers have come his way, and actually he really has had to do that during this season, because we've seen guys like Hollywood Brown, he's been out for most of the season. Similarly, running back Pacheco went out. They bring back Kareem Hunt, and obviously he's getting it done. So I think you talk about teams finding a way to win, but the Chiefs are doing that in every single area. In terms of key points, you look at the Bills game where they obviously came down to that final fourth down, and it's a cornerback blitz. I'm getting my tongue tied there from Steve Spagnuolo, that really kind of settles it. You think you're getting this big dramatic moment, and Josh Allen has no time at all to get that final throw away. And then throughout the season, I don't think you can even single it down to one game, although certainly the Broncos game from the regular season stands out to me. The number of blocks that they've had on field goals and the number of times they've gotten close. This isn't a team that's just sent out to go and just try and break through the line. They are testing for weaknesses systematically throughout the game. They're looking at their film study. They're knowing where to go after. And, if you're taking 3 points away from the opposition, you talk about a team that's winning by less than a touchdown the vast majority of the victories of the season. These things are going to make a difference between winning and losing.
Yeah. Just talking about the rushing game there, so looking at the Chiefs rush, so they're second worst in the league for rush yards per rush. I can't say that, I couldn't say it for the Eagles, I can't say it for the Chiefs. For yards per rush, they're second bottom in the league. I mean, looking at it, I know he was injured for a while, Pacheco, this year, but he's only had 93 rushes, but he's only scored one touchdown. And he has played a lot of games compared to the Pacheco we seen last year. He's only scored one touchdown this year, and he's only 93 touches of the ball. Compare that to Kareem Hunt, he's got 9 touchdowns this season. So they are basically, a man goes down, and this is the thing it's always been with the Chiefs. It's always next man up. There's always someone, and I think that's what. And I've made this point previously on podcasts that the Chiefs, well, Worthy is maybe getting there, but the Chiefs have never had that elite wide receiver. They've always had good wide receivers. I've compared them to before. It reminds me very much of that Patriots team that Tom Brady had, where he made the wide receivers better, and that made the team better. And I think that's what Mahomes is doing with his wide receivers. But it just shows you that Hollywood Brown goes down to bring Juju Smith-Schuster back in. And the next man up is always good enough. It's not as if they're bringing in, obviously we've seen the 49ers go to their fifth string running back. But whoever they bring in is always good enough to do the job that they want. And I think bringing Kareem Hunt back, I don't think anybody was expecting to see that level of production from him. So like you say, it's an overall balanced attack that the Chiefs have got, and they seem to just be able to do it in all phases of the game. So, what's your thoughts on the kind of run to the Super Bowl then, Sarah?
Yeah, like I have been much more, I think, not pleasantly surprised, but much more positive about their performance in the postseason than I have been in the regular season. I think it's been a lot better, and I feel like that's the Chiefs that I know and have watched comparatively. I mean, I'll talk about my key player in a bit, but I think he's again is the star of their offense, because he is, besides from Patrick Mahomes, I think he is their best player, and I think they know that. And I don't think but the interesting thing is they don't rely on him all the time. They only need him when it comes down, and they need to utilize him correctly. And yeah, like just like you said, I think it's Mahomes that makes the wide receivers look good. It's not the wide receivers that make him look good.
Yeah.
And that's their key element. And I'll be interested to see what their rushing game is like against that Eagles defense. That's the give and take of this Super Bowl.
Yeah, so very much like we did with the Eagles, I've asked you to pick a key player for the Chiefs, and you're not allowed to use Patrick Mahomes as your key player. Gav, who is your key player for the Kansas City Chiefs for the Super Bowl?
So, I mean, I kind of talked about it being all three phases of the game, and for me, I think it's going to be a defensive player, which is Chris Jones. He's the leading interior defensive lineman in the league. And I think you're looking at a game here where certainly the Eagles side, we tried not to, but we still talk about Saquon Barkley. You need someone who is going to clog up those holes. And, one man alone can't stop the run game, but can certainly slow them down, plug them up, make them face, these longer down and distance situations, and also just get up into the face of Jalen Hurts. Force him to improvise, force him to panic, because I think we know that on the outside, the Eagles have the receivers that can do damage to the Chiefs. So as much as Spags loves to throw the defensive back blitzes, I think you want to be getting the pressure from your front floor, and that starts off with Chris Jones. And I'm sure I've slipped the tongue about 3 times trying to get that out, but I'm sure you'll follow.
Yeah, Chris Jones is just an absolute game wrecker for the Chiefs, isn't he? Sarah, he was a key player for them to hold on to.
We were talking about who they were going to lose and who they were going to keep. He was the big question mark, I guess, because we knew Patrick was going to be fine, and we know that Kelsey doesn't necessarily take as much of a pay jump from the Chiefs because he utilises that in other ways. So he, does his sponsorships and his podcasts and whatever. And he is the key player on that defense. And also, even just watching, when you watch him on the sideline, when you watch him around the other players, he is the driving force of that side. He is the one, he's the hype man. He is the one that tells them to get it done. And I think he is the key component of that defense.
So far we've talked about prediction players that are going to make a massive. We kind of went for players that are going to make an impact big time in terms of running back, well, no, we don't do running backs, wide receivers, linebackers. So my key player for the Chiefs is actually someone who probably doesn't get the limelight. His position doesn't get what's focused on. And we mentioned it with the Eagles. Their offensive line doesn't get mentioned. My key player for the Chiefs in this game is Joe Tooney. He needs to protect Patrick Mahomes. You can forget everybody else on this Chiefs roster. This guy is going to be key, because if Patrick Mahomes can't be standing up in the pocket, the Chiefs aren't going to win this game. And on that blind side, he's going to be key to protecting him. And I listened to, I think it was Andy Reid talking about the other week, or maybe basically saying, no matter where they put on the line, he just doesn't complain. He just gets on with it. He's moved along that line. He's now at left tackle, sorry. And he's just doing it as if he's done that all his life as well. So we mentioned that Eagles defence being so aggressive. Like, obviously mentioned the defensive line going to get through, but then when you've got those blitzes coming from the secondary, from the linebackers, Joe Tooney's going to have to have his head on a swivel on that left side the whole game. He is one of the best in the business at protecting his quarterback. Like I said earlier on, the amount of sacks that the Eagles defence have got this year, that's naturally the weak side of a defence, is the blind side of the quarterback. So Joe Tooney, for me, is going to, they need to keep Patrick Mahomes standing, or they need to give him time. We know Mahomes is like, and we'll maybe talk about him in a second, even though we're not meant to. He needs the time to get out of the pocket. I mean, and when he's rushed out of the pocket, it's maybe a bit different, but when he makes a decision to go out of the pocket and look for the passes, he needs that protection from his line, and Joe Tooney is going to be massively key to keeping Patrick Mahomes on his feet and not on his backside if the Chiefs want to win this game. So that's my key player. Right, Sarah, we'll come to you. You hinted at him already. I was going to, at that point, I wasn't going to go, I'll just let you do it, but no, we're sticking to the script. I was just like, we'll come to it. We'll temper your excitement for a wee second, but tell us who your key player is for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, well, okay. My key player is Taylor Swift. No, just kidding. My key player is Travis Kelce. I think, yeah, he is the real deal. He is one of, if not the greatest tight end that the game has ever seen. 2024 season, so we're 97 receptions for 823 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns, which again is not overly, everyone's like, oh, okay, that's a regular tight end season, in particular for him, but it's his playoff contributions. It's when it comes down to the parts they need him in, and it's 9 receptions, 136 receiving yards for 1 touchdown, and he is vital for them in getting to the first down. He is always somehow open, which no one ever does. We spoke about it earlier, but how is he standing wide open in the middle of the field? No one knows. And I think the big thing about the Eagles' defense is, while they are so good, they struggle and they show that vulnerability in covering elite tight ends. And this will be a key factor, because I think the Eagles' defense can do everything else. I think that's the thing they'll need to have worked on in these past 2 weeks. And it's just that connection. It's just that Mahomes and Kelce matchup, and or as we like to call it, it's Tay Voodoo. It's Taylor Swift voodoo, because it does exist and it's happened to other people, and it's now happening with the Chiefs in a positive way. So yeah, I just think he is a force to be reckoned with. His track record is there for the postseason, and he is the key factor in their strategy.
Yeah. And going back to who your first pick was, it's one of those ones we need to take the first answer. The Chiefs are undefeated in Super Bowls when Taylor Swift's been there.
They're undefeated. I was whittling off some stats earlier, which I have now completely forgotten, but there's something stupid like they're 8-0 for when she's in appearances. It's just that Tay Voodoo. I'm telling you right now, nothing gets past Taylor Swift, not even Super Bowls. So yeah, I would love to see her happy, obviously, but I'd also not.
It'll come to prediction. Don't give predictions yet.
I know, sorry. I won't say my predictions.
Let's just
I won't say my crazy one.
a bit more about Travis Kelce here, because ultimately, he is effectively the Chiefs' most key player on the offensive side of the ball, apart from Mahomes in terms of attacking sense. Obviously, I mentioned Joe Tooney's key to protecting Patrick Mahomes, but in terms of scoring and moving the ball down the field, it's Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce this season only has 4 touchdowns. That surprised me. And you mentioned Gavin or chat on in the AFC Championship game, he had 2 catches for 19 yards. So he is a bit hot and cold this season. But what I think of Kelce is it's not necessarily the scoring. Like, obviously, we've seen seasons where he'll go and score loads of touchdowns on games when he'll 2 or 3 touchdowns. He just comes up with a big play at the right time on that 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 7 or the 4th down. He's always open. He doesn't get the stats in terms of he scored X amount of touchdowns, but the amount of key plays that he creates for the Chiefs is vital to this team win, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that he brings a lot to the Chiefs, and I think as much as he was quiet against the Bills, he had a big game in the divisional round against the Texans. But I don't think it's not even plays or stats with Kelce, but I mean, American football ultimately is a chess match between the coordinators. So he is someone that, as a coordinator, you are often going to try and scheme to take away. But the question is, what are you willing to give up to stop him? And on the flip side, Kansas City, what are you going to do when they take him away? And that's the thing we can see with Patrick Mahomes. You know, he can improvise. He can, we've seen him running more and more himself in the playoffs, particularly around the goal line. And he will get the best out of receivers, whoever they are. And certainly they have gotten healthier as the season's gone on. I think the other name that I'll maybe drop in there, we've not talked about, is DeAndre Hopkins, is now with the Chiefs, who I think you'd certainly say is past his peak. But if you're thinking about 2 years ago, I mentioned Kadarius Toney, who is just a write-off. He was still able to make a telling contribution, a decisive contribution, actually, to that Super Bowl victory that the Chiefs had. You are just looking across that receiver room and thinking, you only need some of these guys to be able to step up and make 1 or 2 plays. And it's just knowing that when the time's right that you're able to do that.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. Are the Chiefs going to run the same play to score a touchdown for the 3rd Super Bowl in a row? That fake motion back out that they've scored on the last 2 Super Bowls with, I can't remember, I think was it Sky Moore or Rashid Rice scored it, one of the 2 of them, and then the one Tony scored on it as well. So there's that play that they run, and they've scored on it in the last 2 Super Bowls. So interesting to see how that one plays out in terms of that. But like you said, wide receivers, anybody can catch a Super Bowl winning touchdown, as Kadarius Toney has shown. He's probably the only catch he's made in his whole life, to be fair. Anyway, let's we have to talk about him. We mentioned his name there, Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs aren't going to win this game without Patrick Mahomes giving us a bit of Mahomes magic. So I'm not going to get into the GOAT conversation because I don't think that's fair. He is ultimately probably the best quarterback of the last 5 years, I would say, anyway. What else can we say about Patrick Mahomes that's not already been said? Is there anything else to say about him?
Nah. I just there is nothing to add, is there? It's just that Mahomes magic, and I hate to use that phrase constantly, but he just finds a way to do it, and I just don't know how he does it, and how he can turn what seemingly not very good players into quite good players, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, one thing I think is incredible about Patrick Mahomes is he is fiercely competitive. You can see it, but he just always looks like he's enjoying playing the game. Doesn't matter what's going on. Like when he has that ball in his hands, he just looks like a kid in a sweet shop all the time, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's unflappable, and I think you see that in some of the plays that he's made throughout the years. Just being able to throw these sidearms and falling down. He had the touchdown that he passed you through against the Texans, where actually he was falling down forward as he got the ball away. He just knows what needs to be done. But he's unflappable on the field. He's unflappable off the field, because I think one of the interesting things from media, I'm going to say media day, but it seems like it's just media week, is some of the questions that he's had thrown at him. He was asked who's his favourite referee, what's his favourite Italian dish, and he come and steal the American men's flag players' jobs. I think he's politely volunteered to be coach because he might not be up to it by the time the Olympics rolls around. So, he just, whether it's, dealing with, 4, 5, 6 defensive players getting up in his face, or whether it's just a media scrum, nothing seems to faze him.
Yeah. There's no superlatives left to describe him. He is just an elite player, and it'll be interesting to see how he shows up in this game like he has in the last 2 Super Bowls anyway. Alright, we're going to get on to predictions now, folks. Sarah, I don't know if I've put a wee message in the chat. Did you see it? Perfect.
Yeah, I'm ready.
What I want you to do first for me is I want to give you, this is where we just go completely off script, and this wasn't planned before we started recording. I've just thought of the idea. I want a random prediction of something that is going to happen in the game. So, Sarah, I'll come to you first. What random thing is going to happen in this game?
Okay, so my random prediction is also completely out there, so go with me. I think that the Eagles' defensive line are going to sack Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, and Carson Wentz has to come on.
Ooh. That's a game changer, that one.
That is so then it becomes Carson Wentz against his old team, against his old backup QB.
So I'm going to let's expand on it. When in the game is it going to happen? Because if that happens with 5 minutes to go, the game could be done by then.
I'm going to predict he's going to get injured right before the half, and he doesn't come back out.
Perfect. Right, just to add to my bet slip, because I'm going to have to put a bet on this. Who's going to injure him?
I mean, any of them. I'll say any of them. All of them. All 5. Go. Like,
no.
No.
We're going to sack him at once, so that's why he's
going
to
sack him at once, and he's just flattened. No, just kidding. I really don't. No. Okay, well, I put it out there now, so sorry, universe.
Chiefs fans, if this happens, you can blame Sarah.
Yep.
Right, Gav, what's your random prediction for the game?
I feel bad because Sarah's now brutalised, one of the best players in the game, and I feel I have an inkling of where our match predictions are going. So I want to give some credit to the Chiefs, and I've praised them already in this show, and I've done it, I think, in previous reviews that we've done, and say that I think the Chiefs will block a field goal during the course of the game. We saw them, as I say, they did it so well against the Broncos. Jake Elliott hasn't been perfect this season, even in the playoffs for the Eagles. So I just think that I think that unit's going to make the presence felt.
So my random out there prediction is maybe not that out there prediction because it's happened before, right, is what I'll say, but I still think for it to happen on this stage is going to be crazy. I think the Chiefs are going to score a touchdown off of a downfield Travis Kelce lateral. I think he's going to. He dies to do it. He's done it a couple of times. It was obviously the one that got called back that they went in for. So I think he's going to get that moment where he gets his lateral and the Chiefs run in for a touchdown. Maybe not that out there of a prediction, but it's still a bit something different. It's nowhere near Patrick Mahomes getting brutalised, but we'll go with it.
You said random prediction, and that was I just thought, what a amazing. I could say some other stuff. I could say that I think Butker's going to miss a field goal. Great. What a loser. That's fine by me. It's not unlikely. The game's going to end on the game is going to end on a Eagles defensive punch out, as in they'll punch the ball out.
That's something we never spoke about, actually. Something about the way the Eagles train for that. So, I mean, it could be like one of the games that we've seen in the UK this weekend when it finished 2-0. Imagine that, Super Bowl finishing 2-0.
2-0? Oh, God, I'd be asleep.
Nobody manifested 2-0 Super Bowl plays.
I'm not doing it again. No, I can't do it. No more Super Bowl 50s. Not right, for
this
me.
This has probably been the longest episode we've had yet, so let's wrap up because people listening and watching will be starting to get tired of listening to our voices. So let's get to the key aspect in who's going to win, right? So I'm in a situation where, do I want my most hated rivals to win this, or do I want to suffer hearing about the Chiefs and their three-peat? I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys call it first, and I'll come back to myself. I'm going to... the benefit of being the host, I get to choose who goes first. So, Sarah, give us your prediction. A winner and a score.
I'm gonna go 32-28. I'll say the Eagles.
Okay. Gav?
Yeah, okay.
I was moving on before you change your mind.
Yeah, go. I won't say anymore.
I'm going to go 30-23. I think when we get into scores, we get really.
I don't get.
I'm going to go 30-23 in favour of the Eagles.
Okay. I'm going to go 37-34. Walk-off field goal winner from Alison Butker. I think they're going to do it. I don't want them to do it. I don't want the Eagles to win either. But it's just one of those things. It's just meant to happen type thing. You see it in sports all the time. You're like, there's no way that could ever happen.
It's called T-voodoo. It's
one of those things in sports. Nobody wants it to happen. Nobody thinks it's ever going to happen, but it always happens.
Well, we've set it up for you, Dan, because I think you've trailed. I think Sarah and I, we've kind of tied in the...
Don't listen to me, folks.
You've been terrible.
Don't be listening. But the thing is, I've went with my heart more in my head a few times. That's been my problem. That's what's done me, because I've just not backed the Eagles to win a single game. And look, here we go. I've done it again.
So maybe this is it then. Maybe this is the running commentary.
I've just put a curse on the Chiefs. No, this one isn't more of a... I'm predicting against the Eagles because I am trying to be impartial with it being a Super Bowl. I just think the Chiefs, they just always seem to get it done. And I just think they'll do it again. I just think that's it. And I think something we mentioned earlier, I think Travis Kelce will retire if I think he'll probably retire either way, but I think he'll definitely retire if they win it. Yeah.
I don't think so. I think he's got one more year.
He'll not propose to her on the field after the game.
Oh no! This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen anybody say. What an idiotic.
Not happening at all.
Not a chance.
Two people that don't, obviously their relationship is fairly public, right? But they don't live in the public eye. Well, he's not going to do it in the middle of Super Bowl. Not a chance.
Could you imagine him going up to the NFL ahead of time and being like, "Hey guys, listen, I'm going to do this."
And I'm going to overshadow. I'm not going to shadow your whole Super Bowl is going to be overshadowed by me.
Sorry, Kendrick. Sorry, everybody involved in this. I'm doing not a chance. No.
So I've just cursed the Eagles, the Chiefs. So
yeah, I think what's going to give me faith for the Eagles. So there's a couple of points here. So first of all, we've seen the Eagles do it before against the dynasty when they beat the Patriots back in 2018. Now, it's a completely different team from 2 years ago, never mind 7 years ago. But I actually think, that's probably one of the reasons why we can feel good about the Eagles, knowing that they have done it before. And I think that they are a better side than the one that was here 2 seasons ago. I think the other thing as well is that as much as people aren't talking about it out loud, or at least as much as the Chiefs aren't talking about it out loud, things like the three-peat do weigh on teams. I think when you start talking about, obviously a Giants fan, I think about the undefeated Patriots and what happened to them. I think that, and we've seen it in other sports when people are going for record-setting wins over multiple years. Sometimes these things get in your head, and I just think that could be a factor. That we know that ultimately the Chiefs are, I think, 1.5 point favourites, so the smart money is still with them. Yeah. But I think there's just enough to cast doubt.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to throw in another random prediction.
Oh, for God's sake! Yep.
The Eagles are going to run some form of Philly special play.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I don't know what it'll look like, but they're going to throw something in that's reminiscent or a throwback to the Philly special. I don't know what it'll look like, but because you can't obviously run the same thing because it'll be too obvious. But they'll do something that will throw the ball to Jalen Hurts in the end zone, whether it results in touchdowns or another play. Anyway, we've been on for long enough.
Yeah, goodbye.
Bye-bye. Down close, So, Super Bowl 50, as we've been talking about for the last hour and 19 minutes, is just around the corner. So we're hopefully looking forward to a great game of football. Hopefully you'll be listening or watching to this before the game kicks off. So if you are, get on our Instagram and let us know what your predictions are for the game, who you think is going to lift the championship, and even give us your random prediction of something that's going to happen in the game. Drop us a DM or comment on one of your stories or reels that we put up around the game. As always, to Gavin, Sarah, thanks for joining me. Thanks to you guys for watching and listening to our Super Bowl preview show. If you want to hear all about what happened in the game, but you don't want to pay $7,000 for a ticket to watch it and be there, then we'll be back next week to dissect the game in our review show. Until then, we'll see you soon.